Ayo, the Faniac is back. And for those who aren't familiar, earlier on I posted a video that kind of summed up my very critical thoughts that I had on the pilot episode for She Hulk. Um, and I know that was a bit of a while back, but since then, a lot of more episodes have come out, and just today, the season finale was released. So I took a look at it. I easily put together a lot of my thoughts. This might be a little bit jumbled, but this is kind of my impression of what season one has accomplished. And I know this kind of puts a dent in my Spooktober month I'm kind of doing right now, but I just feel like I kind of owed it myself and to those viewers who watched it to kind of give my overall thoughts on season one, what worked, what didn't work, what they could have done to fix it, and more importantly, where they should go with this idea moving forward. And more importantly, since Kevin Feige said she's gonna start becoming integrated more into the movies, I should probably, I guess, touch upon how they should do that, I guess, moving forward. But with that said, season one, how was it overall? It was okay. Nothing horrible. Nothing as okay. So I guess I should do a run by number of each episode. Okay, I'll do a quick summary since most of you already saw my initial thoughts on the first episode. I didn't really get into it personally. It seemed very jumbled because of the very short runtime. They only have like half an hour to cram in an origin story and establishing character relationships, and establishing a whole environment and everything else around the character, her job, her work environment, what her daily life is like. It was a lot to pack into a one single pilot episode, and I feel like it really fell short in terms of how to present it, very minute and concise within that time frame. And I feel like they either should have figured out what to cut out and what to leave in and focus purely on that, or more importantly, in my opinion, they should have expanded upon that into maybe an hour long, double length maybe pilot episode, and really dive in more and expand upon what they should have done to begin with, like such as like again She-Hulk. How does she get her powers? Apparently, she's in a car crash, and the blood just spills on her. Why couldn't you have just have her be in a car crash? She goes to the hospital. She's lost a lot of blood. Why can't Bruce just have donated his blood? Because he's the closest blood type to her. He debates on it a bit. Then he gives her the blood, and then the whole rest of the episode is her processing it, trying to go back to her work environment, trying to get us to know her. That's simple. Like, there we go. Okay. And also at the same time introduce a work environment. I feel like they did a lot in that first episode. That's my take. Episode 2, in my opinion, I enjoyed a lot more. It was a lot better, a lot more of a clear structure. They finally decided to bring back the Abomination from the Incredible Hulk. Tim Roth again reprises his role. He was very good at actually. It kind of got me thinking about the character in a new way, surprisingly. Like how he kind of like, since they're now officially entering the MCU, they kind of actually kind of connected it to the super soldier serum. How he kind of thought he could be Captain America. It actually gave me more in depth identity to him. I actually focused and expanded a lot more on who he was, and it actually got me thinking a lot more about his past and who ultimately he could go. It actually was a lot really interesting stuff going on with the Abomination. That was the real stand out to me in episode 2, and just seeing Jennifer's interactions with her family and her reactions to how she gets fired, because apparently since she got into a courtroom fight with Titania, she was fired, and then she was and then hired by the company she was just suing, GK&H, I think. So that was really interesting. And honestly, that's all I could hope for at episode 2, because I wasn't being sold at the pilot, but by episode 2, I was a bit more intrigued, not completely sold, but easily interested in seeing where the series could go further on. By episode 3 is practically where I started to give up, though. Episode 3, who hasn't talked about it? It has She-Hulk twerking with Megan Thee Stallion. Why do we need that? Heck, I just saw the video of the motion capture suit that Tatiana Maslany had to wear doing that scene, and it was tough to swallow. I have no idea what they were thinking. I have no idea what made them think that was a cool joke to go with. I can only say this. I hope you do a lot less pop cultural references going forward, because it easily makes your product a lot more dated, a lot more manipulative, and more importantly, a lot more tiring, contrived, and just boring and dull. It feels, what's the word, soulless. It feels very controlling, very manipulative, not cool at all. And again, it continues off from where the Abomination was. Apparently, he was about to be put on parole, but they're very iffy about it, especially considering they tie him back to Shang-Chi, which actually I thought was a pretty cool callback. Worked into the story. Wong, thankfully, makes an appearance. Let's see if I can get this up. There we go. Wong from Doctor Strange comes back into the fray. He is in actually a pretty good chunk of the episodes. I was surprised. But I was glad to see Benedict Wong come back. He is a true one of the few standouts. Benedict Wong, I don't think he gets enough praise as is for his role as Wong, because he's just awesome. He oozes charisma. The guy knows how to land a joke. He is funny. He is charming. I can instantly like him and see where he wants to go going forward. Especially considering now that he's Sorcerer Supreme, I am interested in seeing where they take this character going forward, because I personally love Wong a lot now. A lot more than I did when I first saw him in the first Doctor Strange outing. So definitely see what they're interested in, see where they go with him going forward. With that said, I wasn't the biggest fan of episode 3. That's my thoughts there. Going into episode 4, which again has Wong suing another magician for manipulating the arts that he was practicing Kamar-Taj with the sling ring and everything. And, there's the side, so that's the main focus point. But then we get introduced to the sideline, I guess, of them thinking how to give Jen more personality, which is technically, ironically, just a side plot of her going on a slew of boring dates. Woohoo! Our hero, everyone. And okay, I know you're gonna come at me. That's how it was in the comics. That's fine. Look, I'm reading the freaking comic. Heck, this issue is about her getting with Jack of Hearts. I don't mind that. It's just that in the comics, I understand her character. She's at a very low point, so for her to get with Jack and actually feel the sense of hope, once again, to feel she connect with someone finally, of which she was personally someone she could stay away with and finally get close with, that's really interesting. That's invested. That gets me insight to her character and the relationships between the two. It makes me interested. It makes me want to see where it goes moving forward. The TV show, on the other hand, I still have no clue where Jen is, and that's my main complaint about this whole TV show. I know I can relate to the situations she's thrown into. I just can't relate to the actual character. I still know nothing about her entire personality. Like, okay, I will say this. In the new last episode, they did show one thing that actually got me interested in her character. But aside from that, the whole majority of the show is just the writers throwing situations at us with Jen in it. And what's the best I could put this? It's like Harry Potter. The character himself is the actor. Daniel Radcliffe does a fantastic job. He's very charming. He's very likable. But when you actually go down to the bare minimum of the script itself, let's say, for example, Daniel Radcliffe was in Harry Potter. Let's just say some random actor was placed in to give Harry's dialogue. Would it have the same impact? I highly doubt it. I really, truly, highly doubt it. Because the dialogue itself isn't really that impressive and isn't really that memorable. But again, the casting people, the people who casted Harry Potter knew the actor, what they were going for, and they knew the look. And I don't know what they did, but they made it work. The actor clearly had an understanding of the character and how to improve with the script while working with the film crew itself. That's an example of not having the best written character, but knowing what to work with so you can improve upon the situation. I feel like She-Hulk is a case of which they go very script by script, like say this and we'll just get the best take. And I feel like that's not what you need to do. She-Hulk, or Jennifer Walters, ironically, actually, the more I think about it, I know more about She-Hulk than Jennifer Walters, and that's a nitpick right there, or a critique right there, but whatever. My main critique throughout the whole series is that I still don't know Jen, and I feel like that's a main problem. Okay, you know what? Let's make this fair. I'm gonna compare Jen to any of the other characters. Let's say, for example, Bruce Banner, the Hulk, her cousin. A fair assessment. What's he like? Well, in the Edward Norton version, he's a scientist. He's really quirky. He's not the best with people, but more importantly, he knows how to lay low and he knows how to interact when he needs to interact. He doesn't want to lay low, but he has to given the situation he's in. We can't really relate to the situation, but we can relate to the emotions the character is going through. A character lost a lot. He was at a pretty good place, but then fell a great deal, and now we're just with him because we can relate to the fact that we fell at some point, and we want to see him succeed and rise and get up to a higher point at some sort. And luckily, I guess they kind of did something similar where they, I guess, evolving his character moving forward. I personally prefer the Edward Norton version a lot, but Mark Ruffalo is a good actor. He does a good job. But considering where they went with him going forward, creative decisions haven't, I think, been the best in Marvel recently. And this is proof of that. Let me go to episode 5. Okay, and going back to episode 4, which reminds me, in case you're wondering, She-Hulk goes on a date with a guy. She hooks up with him. They sleep together. He ducks out of her because he's more interested in She-Hulk than Jen, which presents, I guess, conflict later. The case gets solved with the magician, etc. It was fine. It was better than the last one, but I'm still not sold. And by episode 5, I was getting really worried because the show is technically halfway over, and I just realized at that point I have no idea what the actual narrative is for a one-season She-Hulk TV show. They kind of tease, oh yeah, evil scientists are experimenting, but which also reminds me about the Wrecking Crew. But even then, they get more of a side. They're treated more of a side note, so I'll treat them as a side note. With that said, the actual narrative, they kind of yeah. We're just, yeah, it's here, but they never outright say, go again, or warn Jen. It's just like, yeah, we'll get there. It's kind of like that. It's like, hold up, it's like, imagine every post-credits scene was just added in either halfway through an episode or at the very last minute of the episode. That's pretty much how the evil scientist narrative was kind of built and treated pretty much up until episode 8. That is a problem. But we're not talking about that episode right now. Let's go to, what was that, episode 5. What happened in that episode? So apparently Titania is suing She-Hulk. No, wait. She-Hulk is suing Titania, for misuse of trademark because Titania trademarked the name She-Hulk. And it's a whole debacle of, oh yeah, am I She-Hulk? Do I own it or not? Which even then still kind of digresses later, but whatever. Okay. Point being is that, which was happening in the last episode too, I forgot, Titania filed a suit against She-Hulk, so She-Hulk filed a suit against back at Titania. That happened, so the twist is Jen's not the lawyer, she's the client. Ooh, what a twist. Cool, why not? Okay. But I will say this, how do I put this? it was enjoyably stupid. Like, I don't know if they realized making this episode, if they realized the dialogue or the situations was stupid, but the way it's shot and the way it's acted is so gitterly kindergarten energetic, it's actually hilarious. And not for the purpose of it being hilarious. Like, if I was to make a joke, of course I want you to laugh. But I'm making you laugh for one specific reason, because I'm trying to emit an reaction because I want the joke to land like this. And the show, I don't know if they want the joke to land like this, because I'm laughing at a whole other reason, the joke. If anything, I'm laughing at how the joke doesn't land, if that makes sense. Which is still pretty freaking hilarious in its own right. But whatever. I kind of got episode 5, I was kind of getting into, especially at the end when they revealed that the Daredevil head. I actually got pretty excited at that point. But I checked my emotions. Especially considering episode 6 went down. But episode 5 was when it kind of piqued my interest again. Mostly because I just kind of enjoyed how stupid the situation was. And the Daredevil hype was getting to me, and I was like, you know what? I'll see where this goes. And in case you're wondering, She-Hulk did win the case. Of course she did. But the whole thing is that also, I forgot to mention, she gets someone to do her clothes. Yeah, she gets a new tailor who does superhero outfitting, and that's how it ties into Daredevil and She-Hulk. Okay, and that leads to episode 6, where they literally say it's a filler episode. I have no idea if that is purposefully brilliant or really lazy and manipulative. It feels, I don't know how. Let's say it's brilliantly lazy or lazily brilliant. Either way, I think it's both. That's the best way I could describe episode 6. Because it knows it's a waste of time. Even the scene itself goes something like, oh yeah, we're kind of taking a break from this storyline because I need to go for a wedding. That's literally the first line of dialogue in that episode. I'll give credit. I'll give the writers having the guts to actually go ahead and literally tell to the audience they're watching a filler episode and they don't care. I give you props for having the integrity and boldness to go in that direction. Just because of that. With that said, though, I have to talk about the episode, because sadly, it is still nonetheless a filler episode, and I feel like you could still get the same stuff if you just moved it into the other episode. Like, again, what's the plot here? Okay, She-Hulk goes to a wedding. She goes, wears one of her dresses, she reverts back to Jen, meets a guy, Titania shows up, they get into a brawl, overshadow the girl's wedding, who she says, I don't want you to turn me to Shield because I don't want you to outshine me. But then she turns to Shield and is like, now it's fine because I don't want to seem like a bitch myself in front of all my girlfriends and all my man to be marrying and all my other, I guess his guys, like, I have no idea what's going on there, whatever. But that's the environment. We're having fun, right? So the best way I can sum up episode 6 is that you can easily skip it because it's a waste of time. You get maybe, 2 plot points that are, I guess, are essential, but you could still get across if you just put that tagline in at the other episode. So props for actually wasting my time and knowing you did. Thank you, Marvel, for that. Okay. And in terms of you're wondering what were those essential plot points, Jen gets a boyfriend. A very nice looking dude who later turns out to be a douche, but we'll get to that later. And the other essential plot point is, ironically, I think she wears a dress. And that's pretty much it. Okay. With that said, episode 7 was actually, I think the first episode actually do a pretty good job at, what's the word? Oh yeah, good storytelling. Because I feel like the writers at this point clearly knew that putting a blank slate character in ridiculous situations isn't going to cut it if we can't relate to her. Which is why I liked episode 2, because we got to see her connect with her family, get an idea of what her environment is. That was the closest I got to understanding her as a character, but I still know crap about her personality, which sucks. So, episode 7, I just took up for grabs because, man, then I needed a win for this show. Boy, did it give me something. What's the plot? Well, very relatably, she gets dumped by her boyfriend. They go out for like about a week or so. Then they go in and sleep together, have sex, I guess. And spoiler alert, it's revealed at the end of this episode that he actually stole all the data from her phone because it ties back into the essential narrative that's been building so brilliantly throughout this whole entire first season about evil scientists, because I want to tell you exactly what it leads to the next episode, because boy, is it deliciously stupid. I'll get to that later. With that said, though, episode 7 is pretty good. What does it do? It actually goes back to the Abomination, who is still, in my opinion, one of the best things to come out of this series. So what happens with the Abomination? Ironically enough, we also tie back into the very, very ironically awesome, yet also very bad joke of which he made that he was writing to 7 soulmates / pen pals he had, and he was going to open a retreat to calm down and serve and cater to all sorts of superheroes or people who have superpowers. Okay, pretty cool. So because Jen is at a very turmoil place, she hears the Abomination violated his parole. She goes up, check. I guess it's all fine from what I can tell, but even then they kind of digress on that in terms of that character development. So, and then they get into, ironically, what I was not expecting to be one of the few best parts of this series, but S.H.I.E.L.D. gets to talk with a porcupine, a vampire, the Abomination, one of the wrecking crew members, a matador, and a bull. I could not predict that at all going forward. If anything, I would have to be a combination of drunk and high to think I would actually be going there. And even then, it's a very good stretch to consider that I go get drunk or get high at the same time, or even do any of that. With that said, though, it is still a pretty interesting scene, because it is interesting to see all these unique characters with a lot of very defined, clear established arcs and interesting stories to talk about. And we don't really get that much from She-Hulk, but we actually do get some progression in terms of her realizing her situation, the character she realized, and her, I guess, date, how bit of a douche he was. She blocks his number, and then we get the big bombshell that he was stealing her data, yada yada. Nonetheless, though, I was pretty impressed. I enjoyed that scene a lot more than I thought it was going in. It was a lot better than I thought it was going to be going in. Nothing, wow, oh my gosh, that was amazing, but impressive by what the series has to offer nonetheless. So, episode 7 was, in my opinion, I was going to give it the best episode out of the series. But then episode 8 came, which ironically has some of the best elements this TV show presents and the worst. I have no idea how it accomplishes both, but nonetheless, I have to give it props for doing both either way. And nonetheless, it does take the cake, in my opinion, for being the best episode this series has brought. And I'll talk about the finale too anyway. But nonetheless, episode 8, in my opinion, is still the best. Why? Because it delivers us exactly what I've been waiting for all this time. Charlie Cox. Matt Murdock. Daredevil. At long last, he leaves Hell's Kitchen. He goes back into the fray. He rules the night. Ooh, yeah, this show needed a win, and boy, did it come dressed in gold and red good leather. Ooh, man. I'll just say this right now. Daredevil was the best thing this show could ever possibly bring. I know I praised Wong and Abomination going in, but I kind of knew they could be good anyway, because those are well-established, really good actors. And they show they have good range outside of the MCU and in the MCU. So I kind of knew going in they were going to give pretty good performances, which nonetheless explains why I think they were good standouts. But Charlie Cox is the real standout, because other than Daredevil, I didn't really know what other projects he was in other than this. And considering that his previous Daredevil show got canceled, because Disney, I was really interested in seeing how they're gonna tackle his character going forward, especially considering his late cameo in Spider-Man No Way Home, which was done pretty cool, I may say so myself. And after seeing the extended cut, it was cool to see a bit more Daredevil in it too. And rightfully just a little bit more so. With that said though, he is still nonetheless the best thing. I have no idea what this actor accomplished, but man, he knows what to deliver. It's kind of like, again, like I said, with Harry Potter. The script isn't anything really good, but the actor himself saves it. Charlie Cox brings much needed charisma, intelligence, boldness, and ironically, good personality. And I haven't seen much of the Daredevil show, but I have seen enough to know it is dark, it is gritty, it is down to earth, it is very relatable, and more importantly, it's bloody as hell. So of course I was thinking, oh well, that's not going to translate at all into the MCU. But I was pleasantly surprised to see, if anything, they made him even more comic book accurate. Minus the blood, of course, but nonetheless, I was actually pretty impressed to see he's even more athletic and he's even more of a badass than I thought he ever could be. So I'll give props to Marvel, they seem to know what they're doing with him. At least for now. So I'll give props, they cleverly knew how to handle Daredevil, and they knew how to make the threat a bit enough to bridge into She-Hulk. Which brings me into my last criticism. Wait, I didn't even get to the ending. Never mind. So, the actual episode 8 episode, how does Daredevil get introduced? Well, apparently, of course, he's a lawyer. So the best part is we get to see Charlie Cox as Matt Murdock go against She-Hulk in court. The best, most hilariously epic thing about this is he wins. And I freaking love every second of that because he wins the case in not even 2 minutes. I don't even think a minute, and I love that. She-Hulk presents very basic information. He goes really in-depth, though, delivering very complicated but very understandable. I would swear I thought they were real legit claims I feel a lawyer would give. I feel like his experience working on Daredevil as a lawyer perfectly was needed for this show. Because, man, he knows what he's talking about. He sounds like a man who's put up shit in Hell's Kitchen. Sorry for my language, but nonetheless, he sounds like he knows what he's doing. And boy, does this show need to sound like it knows what it's doing. So, give props to him for knowing that. More importantly, I also like the little touch of him actually smelling out the case. I guess it goes back to apparently Jen suing her tailor because her client suit malfunction, and it's ironically clever revealed that Murdock finds out through his sense of smell that apparently the guy used jet fuel in his suit when he wasn't supposed to. And I gotta admit, that was pretty fun. And actually, ironically, the coolest actual part of the show was actually Jennifer's interaction and chemistry with Matt Murdock. I have no idea if chemistry between them was ever possible, but I'm actually interested in seeing what they could do going forward. They show they could be a couple, especially in the new episode, so I am interested in seeing what they could do with the two going forward. With that said, though, they do wrap up the Matt Murdock Daredevil story pretty quick, and they do show in really good chemistry. The weird part is, of course, they bang. Yes, Daredevil bangs She-Hulk. And a Marvel kid, at least. I feel like they only did that but just because it's Daredevil and it's from TV. I mean, that's the only thing I could probably imagine coming from that show. And I have no problems with that. With that said, though, sadly, the episode keeps going after Daredevil exits the screen. And that leads to what I believe is the most suckiest way of introducing the narrative this late into the series with one episode left to go, which ironically is a software company called Intelligentsia forming and rallying against She-Hulk because they believe she was unrightfully handed powers like a toy to an infant, and they believe she should have earned the powers like the rest of the superheroes. Honestly, a pretty interesting case, but how do they go about showing the world that? They show a sex tape. Those slimy bastards. They show a friggin' sex tape. I mean, seriously, what the hell are you thinking? This isn't like Kim Kardashian banging Kanye West on the web. Sorry for my pop culture reference, but it's the only thing I can think of at the moment. With that said, though, what the hell were you thinking, dudes? Actually, you know what actually could have worked? Episode 8. And that same episode, you see She-Hulk tearing up a garage and throwing cars for no reason. Why couldn't have used that footage? Actually show and collab She-Hulk a compilation of her rigging up stuff and not having consequences to pay for it. Duh! Dude, even I can make a better plot than you, a better freaking revenge plot than you idiots. Oh. With that said, though, yes, as She-Hulk goes up to an award ceremony to obtain an award, they decide to get back at her by showing her having sex with her boyfriend in the episode earlier. Nailed it. And by that I mean, I believe she's nailing him completely, because they fully sense. I do find it funny that now Disney is having a lot more sex scenes, considering they never really had a lot since the first Iron Man outing. I'm just surprised they actually have this many in the show and recently in Disney, because it's freaking Disney. I'll give them props, though. They keep doing it. With that said, though, the revenge plot is freaking stupid, and I wish they would have come up with a much more better revenge plot than that. And I get what they're going for, ruin her public reputation. That's fine. Why not actually show her criminal record, or freaking causing damage as She-Hulk? Get actual dirt, not make people gossip about her freaking sex life. That's stupid. Okay. I know somewhere down the road I heard the writers originally pitch this as a sitcom as opposed to a superhero series, and for a sitcom, seeing your best friend bang someone else on public TV, that's really shocking and really interesting. Much similar to how the Friends masturbation scene went down and how it can move the plot going forward. That's fine. If you want to, go ahead. In a superhero show, with only one episode left to go to introduce a narrative, you're screwed. And you're lazy, you're manipulative, you're cheating, and you're stupid. And I'm talking to Disney at this, not the writers. Okay. With that said, though, we get the last episode. Just came out today. How do they wrap up a season's worth of narrative by introducing the narrative in the last episode and summing it all up here? How did they do it? Well, remember in the episode 6 where I said they actually recognized it was a filler? They decided the brilliant idea of copying and pasting that, except on a grander level, where She-Hulk actually complains of how the season finale is a shit show. And I am not kidding, that's the episode right there. It is super meta, super over the top, and very weirdly is very self-aware that it knows it's garbage. I have no idea what the writers were thinking. Again, I have no idea if this is lazily brilliant or brilliantly lazy. It is that weird, beautiful combination I can't quite fathom yet. But nonetheless, how does the episode start? Well, surprisingly, S.H.I.E.L.D. gets put in jail. With no rhyme or reason, I guess just seeing her go bonkers because seeing her have sex on TV is not cool. Okay. With that said, it is interesting to see the public really turn on her. That idea is actually pretty sound, pretty fine. I can see that working. It's just that the actual thing you use to get them to go against her is really stupid. The idea is sound, it's just that the execution you did go with is very lazy and stupid. With that said, though, how's the rest of the episode? Well, how do I put this? She goes back to see the Abomination, aka Emil Blonsky, and talk to him about some stuff while meeting and recuperating with one of the Wrecking Crew members. With that said, her best friend and another lawyer they work with also go up to the same place because they realize through... Okay, I forgot to mention this. This actually introduces the one thing that actually got me interested into Jen's character. What is that? We see an old video of her in college dancing as a young kid and slapping her butt. I have no idea what they were thinking about this, but by God, I'm more interested in seeing what made her want to make that video than any of the rest of the series. She's a lawyer, that's fine. But by God, her partying up a storm with glasses and in a dorm room? I don't know that much, but I'm much more interested in seeing what got her up to that point. What made her think it was right to do that? Was she even on drugs when she was doing that? What was the environment like she was doing that? Was she on boy crazy mode? Just what fathomable mindset could she be in to do that video? I'm much more interested in actually fathoming what led her to do that video than the rest of this friggin' episode. With that said, what does happen in the rest of this episode? Well, apparently her best friend decides to post that on media. Good one. And then apparently gets a front row seat to finding out who Intelligentsia runs. And guess what? It's one of the douchebags she dated. Woohoo. With that said, though, I gotta say I was pretty surprised that it's still the only ironically really enjoyable actor. I forget his name at the moment, but if you do know him well, he's been in such a really good... He played very good comedic roles in Miracle Workers and Baywatch. I forget his name at the moment. He played Todd in this series. He's a really good actor. He clearly knows comedy. He clearly knows how to nail this stuff. He was pretty good. But again, they don't give him much to work with, so you're only as good as what you're given. And Sally wasn't given much, so that's the thing. With that said, though, they introduced the plot halfway that he stole her DNA in order to inject it into him because he believes that's how she should be given. He worked to get her DNA, so he injects it to him and becomes a Hulk himself. With, ironically, even more lazy, freaking weird, shitty CGI than I was ever expecting. Again, sorry for my language, but yeesh, is that really freaking horrible. I was already kind of unnerved with how She-Hulk was looking in some episodes, but by God, his face alone and the... What? It is a whole other level of unnervingness right there. Wow. With that said, though, they actually go poke fun and go full meta with the Hulk landing out of nowhere, Todd turning into Hulk, the Abomination going in full-on Abomination mode, Titania showing up the hell out of nowhere, and then all of a sudden, Jen goes full on meta, breaks the fourth wall, actually exiting her own show on Disney Plus, and visits Marvel Studios at Walt Disney Studios. I am not freaking joking on that level. They actually go full on meta and have the character herself leave her own show and go visit the writers themselves, who ironically enough are the legit writers acting as themselves. Where the heck did this come from? I guess maybe you could say the fourth wall breaks, or I guess alluding to this, but Deadpool breaks the fourth wall. There's no way knowing he's gonna break out of his own movie anytime soon. They never hint at that. If Daredevil does it, what makes sense is that it's spontaneity. Daredevil is very spontaneous with how he breaks the fourth wall and how he chooses to do so, recognizing other actors. Again, my one favorite line from Deadpool 2, "Oh, you're so dark, you're showing up from the DC universe?" Shut up, Thanos. Oh, I love jokes like that. And men to the show needs jokes like that. With that said, though, they really do go full on meta and say she needs to see Kevin, as in reference to the president of Marvel, Kevin Feige himself. Man, I am loving how over-the-top, bonkers, insane meta this episode is going. With that said, she actually discovers Kevin is actually an AI robot that's been secretly running Marvel all this time and has been making very stupid decisions based on an algorithmic formula he's developed. I swear I'm not high right now. That's legit how this episode is going. That's what you get. Wow, was I not expecting that going forward? With that said, though, I guess you could make the argument, oh, you weren't expecting that, so that's a cool twist. But also at the same time, were they really building up to that? Here's a comparison. Unbreakable versus The Sixth Sense. I know, weird choices to make, but they're both M. Night Shyamalan, and they both have interesting cases of how to do twists. One does it effectively, while the other is more concerned on delivering a twist than building up to the twist, which is a very big difference. Let me put it down like this. The Sixth Sense clearly establishes from the beginning that the psychiatrist who's helping the little kid is very distant from other people, and he's kind of wondering why himself. We know from the start that the kid sees dead people, and he's really scared. But the psychiatrist, who we never actually see interact with anyone else but the kid, and he sees very distant from other people, again, very, very good callback, so we never really see that make sense until the last scene, which is a very good twist again. And then we see the kid finally own up to it and accept his role, while we also see the psychiatrist finally go up to his dead wife and actually see her pass right through him, and then he realizes all this time he was dead, and that he was a ghost, and that the only person who saw him was actually the kid he's interacting with that could see dead people. By God, that's a good twist. Again, The Sixth Sense. Many people have praised it before, and I'm not gonna stop that going forward. It is a good movie, and it knows how to deliver a killer twist. Sadly, Unbreakable falls very flat at that. Why? Here's why. Unbreakable, what's it about? The same actor Bruce Willis plays Kevin Dunn. A dock worker, I forget what kind of job he was, but he's on a train, he gets into an accident, and miraculously, he's the only person that survives. He goes up to Elijah Price, Mr. Glass, in a wheelchair, and discovers that he may actually survive because he might have superpowers. And throughout the whole movie, we see very clearly that he might have superpowers, but then he clearly says, I'm human because I almost drowned in water. But then he's like, no, all superheroes have a weakness. Water is yours. Which ironically, again, is very stupid when you think about water's technically everywhere, so man, you're screwed. But take that out of consideration. The film does deliver up to a pretty cool climax with him getting his first case down, also overcoming his fear of water. And then, nonetheless, though, the movie ends until it keeps going, and then you realize the killer twist that Elijah was the mastermind all along. And I wouldn't mind that if they build up to that, but in no way are we alluded to the possibility of him being a supervillain. We instantly know he's an outcast and is treated like an outcast, much like our main hero, which makes sense as to why he could connect with him. But that's all we can get. A mentor we're alluding to, not a villain. If they get up to the possibility of him standing up to the people who made fun of him and possibly taking on the idea of being a vigilante himself and trying to see justice in his own way, that would have been fine. But we're in no way alluded to that, and we're instead given the twist that he did all the other accidents happened before and is also responsible for the train crash that happened in Unbreakable. And yeah, that was continued in the, the Unbreakable Trilogy. Unbreakable Trilogy. But even with that, again, the twist is more focused on being a twist, and it's just delivered like that. And I know it's sorry to go off rails, but that's the best comparison I can make here. Let's bring another twist, and like in the MCU, what's a good one? Iron Man 3, okay? I know. Oh, crap. They mistreated the Mandarin. Oh, God. First of all, they did get it right at Shang-Chi, so remember that. Also, on the other hand, I'm less worried about this being comic accurate if you just treat it as a separate iteration. And even then, they kind of, I guess, fixed themselves later with it saying he was a fake Mandarin. So even then, they confirmed he was a fake Mandarin. They never downright said he was the Mandarin. The twist was that he wasn't the Mandarin. Therefore, someone else was the Mandarin. And yeah, I guess you could say the twist is that Aldrich Killian was the Mandarin. But even then, he just coined it like, I'm the guy you were looking for. I'm the Mandarin. He never said outright, oh yeah. Yes, I'm the one who's been running it this whole time. No. He just coined it because it already existed. Therefore, we never actually got to see the real Mandarin, as opposed to actually seeing the real Taskmaster and getting a much more dollar store version of Taskmaster than a dollar store Mandarin. No. We clearly understood right then and then it wasn't the real Mandarin, and that it's just a person pretending in both ways of the sense of being a real Mandarin. And again, you could arguably say it wasn't really alluding to that, but they do the very clever twist of having the actors really into that and treating it more as a joke. I'm perfectly fine with that. Again, they deliver it more and focus on you actually laughing at how weird and out of nowhere this is, and I'm fine with that personally. Because if that's how they're going to go with it, I'm fine with that. But that's not how they do it here. At first, it's a funny idea of Jen exiting out, but then they go over the top with her actually writing the ending for her own show herself. That's super meta right there. Watching all the other scenes with the Marvel movies, talking to Kevin, they being like, no, I want Daredevil in my ending. I do not want Bruce showing up till later. I want Abomination going on the right track, and I want this other stuff to happen, etc., etc., etc. Oh, that's a lot to go through. With that said, Kevin places her back in the show, cost effectively, as they joke in the episode. All is settled in its own weird way. Todd is put in jail, I guess. Actually, I just don't know if the guys have to call Todd or not, but you know what? I'm just calling him Todd because I don't care anymore. He's put in jail. Titania records it. Abomination's put back in jail because he's owning up to the fact that he changed, even though he knowingly knew he shouldn't, which is stupid. But I guess they need him back in jail for future references or crap. I don't care. With that said, Daredevil also comes back into the fray and a very, very funny cameo. It is pretty funny, actually. But it comes very last minute, and I just don't feel like he's worth it. He's a good actor. He had his time to shine. Although in the next scene, it's almost maybe worth it because they actually do see him interacting with Jen's family, having a barbecue with them, getting to know the situation. It's actually kind of funny and very touching. I liked it personally. With that said, though, we then find out exactly. I forgot to mention in episode 2 we saw that Bruce was going back into outer space, and that apparently a Sicarian ship also was there for no reason. Actually, never got an answer to that either. Why even introduce that in the beginning? Oh, whatever. Stupid thing you want. We then actually find out the truth behind that. Apparently, Hulk had a son who was Scar from the planet Sakaar. Why couldn't you have done that to begin with? Are you telling me instead we got a sitcom She-Hulk episode when we could have gotten full-on War Hulk? Marvel, you really don't know what the fans are asking for, do you? No! Okay. With that said, the series ends and we get a nice little mid-credit scene of Wong breaking Abomination out once again. And thus season 1 ends. So, what did I overall think of She-Hulk? Season 1, all 9 episodes? I don't particularly care for it. It is easily the weakest project to ever come out of the MCU, hands down. It is lacking direction, lacking a good structured narrative that's cohesive, very laid out, very structured, from beginning to end. I guess you could say I have no idea where it was going forward, but I should also be able to get a hint of what is to come and get a feeling of what the threat is, and more importantly, what the character is going through. And I don't get crap of that throughout the whole series. And man, do I feel robbed at that. Ugh. With that said, though, also, the series could have been a lot worse. I've seen a lot worse movies, a lot worse TV programming out there. So I can't say it's god-awful. It's just extremely formulaic, extremely misdirected, very unfocused, very underwhelming. Even for Marvel. I get they have a formula. I get they want to change it up and switch it up and get new people going in. But please, have a focus. Have a direction. Don't just cram out series after series after series after series after series, movie after movie after movie after movie after movie after movie. You don't get quality content if you're just releasing stuff. No, you have to take it step by step. Examine the series itself. Don't just say, that could be a cool series, greenlight it. No, actually think about the pitch itself. Take into consideration how it could work. Actually think about how to structure a TV narrative. Think about what each episode needs to do in order to correlate and not be filler, and more importantly, how each episode should lead and advance the plot further and further and further. If you are gonna have filler, that's fine. If you are gonna have filler, in that case, freaking focus on the characters in the world. Focus on what the characters are, what their personalities are like, what their world is like, what their relationships are like with other characters. Actually focus on the world you've created if you're going to do filler episodes. With that said, though, the series is a huge misfire. But also at the same time, I would be heavily lying if I said it didn't give me some good stuff, because I could see potential with this. I like a lot of the ideas it presents. I really liked a lot of the actors in this. Tim Roth, Benedict Wong, Charlie Cox, and even Tatiana Maslany. If anything, I feel like her performance was really kind of iffy because she wasn't given much content. And she is a good actress. Again, watch Orphan Black. She is amazing in that. Just the fact she has to play all those different people in one series is phenomenal. And I feel like she is way too talented to be in a show like this. So just for the benefit of Tatiana Maslany's career, recast She-Hulk and put that actress in good quality stuff. Again, though, it is still well acted. It does have good potential. It does show it's at least trying to be its own thing and trying to have some fun with the characters, with the audience, and play off each other. That's fine. It's not executed at all how it really should be. But with that said, I get what they were going for. I can see where they were going with it, and it's fine. And again, it's easily the weakest link out of all the Marvel content I've seen. If anything, it's just depressing at this point. With that said, though, you could find some entertainment value. I mean, it would be very little entertainment value, but I've seen other content that are so bad it could even muster 1% of entertainment value. And considering how much this show was able to bring in terms of entertainment, that's impressive. So for that, I'm going to settle down, buckle up, swallow my pride, and give She-Hulk what it rightfully deserves. 3 out of 5 lightsabers. That's my ranking for the entire first season. Of course, my actual rankings of each episode, how I'd rate them, would be heavily different. If you want an idea of what I thought of each episode, in my opinion, the last 3 were arguably the best, with episode 2 being a really good honorable mention. But that's like, what, half is maybe good? Do better than that, Marvel. Just this year, you've given us Miss Marvel, which was structured, but had very likable leads that made the trip really worth it. Moon Knight was very stylized, very different from the usual Marvel stuff. Presented a lot of really cool stuff, ideas, and had really good actors and talented people working on it, and makes me excited for a season 2 of that. I would rather have multiple seasons of either of those shows. But Marvel, if anyone working at Marvel Studios is watching this video, please listen. Kevin Feige, Disney, Marvel, if you're going to go ahead and greenlight a season 2 of this, I urge you to listen to my critique on how to go about doing it. Don't just mesh 2 different genres that don't go together. Superheroes and sitcoms, I guess they could go, but if you're not going to focus on that firsthand and just leave it up to people who aren't experienced enough to do it correctly, it's not going to work out. And the irony is, you do have good people working on it. You just have them working on the wrong stuff. Just like a gal. She wrote the Pickle Rick episode. That was a really awesome episode from Rick and Morty. But this isn't Rick and Morty. This is She-Hulk, which is very different. So you need a person on the tier of comic book level and lawyer knowledge. Someone who knows both and can integrate them together. Have you met with the actual Daredevil creators and met with someone lighthearted like maybe Jeff Johns from DC? You could potentially have something that could maybe work. And again, that's a strong maybe. But I can't fix what's already been done, but I can urge you to think of how to go and mend this going forward. If you are dead serious on having her go into the MCU and integrate it into the movies, please listen. Focus on establishing Jen as her own character. Don't just make her a fourth wall, wise, all-knowing, cracking joke pop person. That doesn't scream like ability. The actress herself is really talented, but she's given very little material to go with. If anything, I feel like this is actually a lot worse than Captain Marvel. And yes, I know what I just said right there. So I urge you, if you're gonna integrate She-Hulk and greenlight a season 2, I urge you to do probably one of 3 things. Sorry, 3. Get good writers who know the subject of lawyering, comic book knowledge, and more importantly, franchising. Get people who know all that and get them writing She-Hulk content. Secondly, the actress. Make her more involved in the process. Don't just give her stuff to do. It's interesting to see the actual character getting involved in the series. That's interesting, so why not get the actress involved too? Why not get her input? Because she's a really good actress. Therefore, of course, she probably would have some really interesting things to say about it, so I'll be interested in hearing what she has to say about this. 3, take time working on the CGI. I know the CGI department has been lacking recently, and it's because of working very long hours with very little to no pay. So I urge you, Marvel Studios, take more time working on the CGI, give them as much time as you need to perfect their art. Don't force them to cram hours and hours of stuff if you're giving them a very small window. If anything, delay your projects so you can work on the effects. I urge you to do that going forward with any project you're doing with now. And lastly, if you're dead serious, again, on integrating She-Hulk into the MCU and any other movie, possibly even Secret Wars going forward, I urge you to do all of that. And more importantly, I need you to listen. Listen to the critiques people have. Don't just build up a fake wall and pretend you know what you're doing, because if anything you're showing us, you have no idea what you're doing. You're trying to make money off of us. And frankly, you're losing money right now because you're not listening. Endgame was a very satisfying conclusion because it listened and took together all that time, over 10 years of build-up and fan-devoted knowledge to deliver a good freaking finale. It may have its own problems, but it still delivered a satisfying conclusion because it had talented people working on it who knew what the fans wanted. And going forward, I pray you listen to what the fans and critics have to say about She-Hulk and any other project going forward in terms of Marvel. Please listen. If this is the road you're going to go down with Secret Wars and any other project, then count me out. If this is how you're going to treat every other superhero going forward, then you've officially lost all my money. I'll still watch Star Wars. I'll still watch anything else you put out, but you'll have lost my faith in Marvel. And man, does that take effort. That's all I have to say. This concludes my thoughts on She-Hulk. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Please like and subscribe. Do you agree with me? Do you not agree with me? What did you think of Season 1? I'd like to know. And more importantly, take care.